This is the Man on Second podcast as part of the 5 Reasons Sports Podcast Network. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Man on Second podcast on this Monday morning. It is August 15th. Joined as always, joined with me as always is Joe Frisaro. I forgot how to talk there for a second, Joe. How's that?
Well, as we kind of dive into this, the Marlins did kind of leave us speechless with the getting swept in the 4-game series with Atlanta, 15 under as we're recording this, with the Padres only coming to town. So the road gets a little easier. But we're doing well. I hope you're feeling well. We normally do these on Sunday night. Eric was a little under the weather, so he's ready to roll here on Monday. But Eric, we're kind of struck, and we're going to look a little bit more than dissect a game or a player individually. Right. We're going to kind of look at the big picture because we know where the Marlins stand right now. And my biggest question, and even kind of the vibe from people not just wearing the uniform at the Marlins, but being around the team, is just what is the plan? Because it seems a little murky. The Marlins, this isn't totally shocking to me, Eric, because this was a Derek Jeter vision, all along, until he was dismissed or parted ways, however we want to call it, right before the season. This was Derek's vision. And Derek's plan was what? Let's kind of break it down. Wrote a little notes here. Okay, what's Derek's plan? He basically came in, committed to building the farm system, right? First and foremost, build the farm system. They weren't good enough and they weren't deep enough, and that was not the wrong approach. Correct move. But then he wanted to do it with athleticism and up-the-middle athletes. Remember, everyone's going to be a shortstop. They could be moved to third. A center fielder could move to left or right. So they loaded up. Who did they target? The Lewis Brinsons, the Monte Harrisons, the super toolsy, unpolished baseball player, athletic guy. Then they were going to try to be that kind of speed type of team and athleticism and run teams out of the ballpark in a big park like Lone Depot Park. So, okay, they scrapped that. Their vision this year is, hey, you know what? This is a mashing lead. You got to homer. You got to hit. You got to slug. You got to get extra bases. So they do what? They get Avisail Garcia, Jorge Soler. They're banking on, Cooper being a 20-30 homer guy, Aguilar, 20-30 homer guy, Brian Anderson, 20 homer guy. They're banking on that. Now we're gonna slug with people, which is one of the reasons why Jazz hit 9th to start the season. And they didn't even equate Jazz. They kind of saw him as the young guy, get his game going. But they kind of transitioned into we're gonna slug with you. So where do we stand here in mid-August? The Marlins are 23rd in homers with 103. They're 27th in slugging at 376. A year ago, they were either 28th or 29th in runs scored and about 29th or 30 in homers. So congratulations. They're a little bit better homer-wise, but their slugging is way down. And just for perspective, I could say the Marlins slugging is 363. The casual fan would say, well, what does that mean? Well, let's put it this way. The Baltimore Orioles are 16th in the league in slugging at 392. So that's middle of the road-ish. I could go to the 15th, but a tick higher. So they're a good, basically 30 percentage points lower on a team average slugging. So they didn't accomplish their mission. So we know their pitching's good. We only go there. But people say, go get a hitter, right? Let's improve the offense. Well, we did 2 approaches. They're going to be a speed run athletic team, pick the wrong guys. Then they're going to be a power team, pick the wrong guys. What's kind of your observations? Because right now we're seeing J.J. Bleday, Peyton Burdick, guys with home run potential, Lewin Diaz, who's hit a lot of minor league homers. They're getting their opportunities now. Charles LeBlanc, I don't know about homer guy, but, nice approach, good little player right now. Just your observations on how they kind of move this forward.
So as far as in terms of the 2 approaches, if I were to give my preference on those approaches. I would prefer them to go in the athletic direction, just because this is a bigger ballpark. Even the guys that you think have huge power, that are mashers, that was the idea behind bringing in a guy like Avisail Garcia, for example. He has 30 homer power, but he's generally speaking, outside of playing in Tampa and Detroit, in Milwaukee, he played in a much better hitter's ballpark than Lone Depot is. But you take a look at even last year's lineup, opening day lineup. You have Starling Marte, you have Adam Duvall. Looking back on it now, and I know hindsight's 2020, I don't want to play armchair quarterback too much here, but you could make a really solid argument that lineup with Marte, with Duvall, with Aguilar a year younger because he's kind of regressed a little bit, was better than what the Marlins trotted out this year on their opening day lineup, at least with the way things have played out. Now that's not to sit here and completely rain on their parade. They made moves in the offseason. They made an earnest attempt to get better. But what I will say is the organizational direction that they're moving in. Number one, they kind of just shifted, on a dime like that, because they had the Jeter plan, and then all of a sudden they said, well, you know what, we want to go with power. I think that part of this is the result of not seeing a plan through and kind of changing what you're looking for on the fly. And then another part of this, and I've noticed this with the young hitters in particular, organizationally. You've seen it with Jesus, you see it with JJ, you see it with Lewin, you see it with Burdick. These guys are getting pitches down the middle and they're fouling them off. And I don't know if that's an organizational development thing. We're trying to get more lift on the ball, trying to improve the fly ball percentage, generate more power. But these guys, and it's not necessarily an approach thing, at least not so much in the case of Lewin or JJ. They've both got double-digit walk percentages, which are, above average. They've got good eyes at the dish. But for some reason, there's just something that's not clicking there, where mechanically their swing, whether it's a timing thing because these guys do have kicks to their swing, or what, I don't know exactly what it is, but there is some sort of, at least from an organizational standpoint, there's something missing there that I'm just not seeing with the young hitters.
Yeah, and that excellent point, because you're right. There's one thing to say you just change your approach. We do know Lewin, remember, he used to have his hands low. Remember, that was a big thing, which made him real susceptible to pitches up in the zone, especially fastballs. Bleday, with hitch in his swing, has always been kind of vulnerable to velocity up. Now, that doesn't mean that the other pitchers can always execute there. It's no secret pitchers want to go velocity up on JJ Bleday, but you also have to go for a strike, and you also have to be able to hit your spot. So he's getting pitches more down the zone. And I do like the fact that he raised a really good point, because JJ came as a pure hitter. But then you even hear them saying, oh, maybe he's a power hitter. Well, you drafted him 4th overall, and now he's going to be 25 in November. So he's an older prospect, and that's the thing. People know I go back to that 2019 draft when C.J. Abrams and Riley Green and C.J. Abrams in that order went immediately after J.J. There's nothing wrong with either of those guys' swings. No one's sitting around going, those guys are athletic with really fundamentally sound swings. They're 21 years old in the big leagues. Yes, they're going to struggle, but JJ struggling at 24. These guys are struggling. All these guys are struggling young anyway. But the point is their swings don't need as much adjustment. They just need to see big league pitching and develop into it. And it is a good point that what are they doing, in terms of development? And, Bleday is looking to pull. Now, lefty power plays better at Lone Depot, and it was a refreshing to see on Sunday him go to left center, take like a fastball, a little kind of middle away, take a double to the other way. So I do like the fact that Bleday at least gives you an extra base hit threat. Yeah. Even if he's, one hit between hits and a couple of walks, he is a threat. You make a mistake to him, he can do damage. Lewin again, inconsistent playing time. He's under the microscope. They're checking to see, is he literally their guy? And here's a guy for basically 2.5, 3 years has been in the minors because he's been blocked. And they could do to him very easily what they did to Jesus Sanchez, is basically burn his options out, not make a quick read on him. And for all the criticism of Jesus Sanchez by the same people that said he would hit 30 homers this year, the reality is Jesus Sanchez, if he's not up, and we've been through this by the Dodgers series, he will burn his final option and will have zero trade value and is a likely DFA candidate, which another team seeing a 24-year-old with a ton of power and potential will jump on that player, and we'll be sitting around next year at this time going, remember when Jesus Sanchez, man, he's got 17 homers and hitting, and contributing for the Braves or someone like that in a role that the Marlins never got. And so there's a danger going on here with their roster development, but clearly they want to give Burdick and Bleday long looks, and they'll get that. But as noted, there's a lot of all or nothing in both of their guys' games.
And the thing about it is, this isn't like Jazz, and I bring up Jazz just because Jazz probably has the most functional power on the team. He's going to give you the most extra base hits. He's going to hit the most home runs. He's 5'10", 160. Yeah. He's JJ is 6'3", 210. Lewin is 6'5", 220. Burdick is 6 foot, 205. My point being here, these are the types of guys that can be line drive hitters first, and because they've got so much natural power, these guys are naturally strong. They'll hit home runs out on accident, and they can each end up with 20 plus just doing that. So I don't understand why guys that have that natural power already need those adjustments to where the approach is looking for power. If a guy's naturally big, for example, let's take Judge. You think Judge needs to change his swing to hit balls out? Now he's 6'7", 250. It's a little bit different, but
yes, they can
my point still
run.
Stands. Yes. If you give if JJ Bleday were to shorten up his swing, he's still going to be a 20 plus home run guy, just because his frame, dictates that he can be that.
Yeah. He doesn't chase, often. And, so he's going to swing in the zone. But as you note, the thing about JJ and many hitters, and why we're singling out JJ is he was the fourth pick in the draft. And that pick is usually intended to be an impactful, all-star caliber, foundational player for you. Is JJ and Burdick big leaguers? Absolutely. The question is, are they going to be big league regulars? Are they going to be average big league regulars? Are they going to be a little below average? Or are they going to be all-star caliber or more? You don't look at, we can look at all these other teams. You're looking at impact. Yeah. And that's where Marlins are lagging behind all these other teams.
And to be fair, and this is a point that you made about Jazz last year when his numbers started to dip at the end of the season. It's hard to get a good read on Peyton Burdick, for example, when he's being protected by Stallings and Rojas. So he's not going to see the quality of pitches that Michael Harris or Vaughn Grissom are seeing in Atlanta right now. Just as an example, not necessarily that he is those guys. I acknowledge there's a difference, but they're in a much better situation as well to produce.
That's a great point, and I think that's something you have to look. And Donnie noted this because they asked how much are the kids going to play, how much are the veterans going to play. Obviously, they got to make decisions on Brian Anderson, John Birdie. We're talking for about 23 and
right.
Beyond. And if we don't know for sure that Soler or Garcia are out for the year, let's say one of them come back. What the odd man out seems to be Encarnacion down there. It's like there's no room for him, just to play. So you might as well play him and make him the September call up. And even then, you're not going to probably get a read on him. But to your point, Donnie was noting, we want to protect the kids as much as possible. Well, the problem is the veterans
Right.
and just this kind of scrambling to score anything and getting all excited for the occasional home run. It's like it's making it very difficult. But you're absolutely right. Vaughn Grisham at 21 years old, Michael Harris, 21 years old, getting looks protected by Matt Olsons and Dansby Swansons and Ronald Acuña's and and those guys. It's a totally different ball game. Austin Riley, it's a totally different ball game, and that does factor in, and that does raise how you build it. You can't, and I don't think the Marlins. First of all, I don't know they have enough. It's not like 17 because there's really no one everyone wants in 17 when the Marlins put 3 all-star outfielders on the market. They were going to get a lot of trade interest. The Marlins put, any of these veterans on the market that they have. It's not outside of some pitching. It's not really going to command that. So it's like you do want to protect the Blades and not say JJ come save the season,
right?
But again, it's they kind of are in this hole because it almost seems like right now every player recognizes I may not be here next year.
Right.
Or, I might be out of here. And like I said, I'll mention this till I'm blue in the face. What they've done with Jesus Sanchez is just so baffling to me that you quit on a player that as an organization, he was untradeable in spring training. And now all of a sudden the swing is all messed up. It's long. He's got all these holes. He can't play the outfield. Talk about demoralizing, and when the players in the organization see that could happen to someone who you were just ready to put in the All-Star game in spring training, that makes you look over your shoulder. And so there is a cultural issue the Marlins also have to deal with what message they're going to give to these players because they're human beings. They come to work every day. They don't like to lose. They don't want to be embarrassed. They want to all perform. And the culture is if you're playing uptight, you're going to have a very hard time succeeding. And that's when the mistakes are made in your off-season evaluations and moving forward.
Yeah. No, and that's a good point because you can very clearly see, there's a lot of that tightness on this team right now because guys are just waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're just, okay, well, when is it going to be my turn to get sent down or DFA'd or, am I going to be here next season? You can definitely see that.
Yeah. And we don't want to beat it to death and we're going to kind of move along because as we know, man on second is going to be all things baseball, especially with Florida. Let's go over to the Rays because there's a little bit of fireworks last weekend between the Rays. But first, before we kind of get to the intensity of it, Drew Rasmussen, we have to give our just due to.
Oh, no, absolutely.
I don't know how much of our audience even knows who he is, but he was 3 outs away from a perfect game. Jorge Mateo ambushes him the first pitch of the 9th inning. I think it was his 80th pitch, Eric. Imagine he's at 79 pitches through 8 perfect innings, not even averaging 10 pitches an inning. And Mateo hits a double down the line to break up the no-hit, perfect game bid. Rays obviously go on to win the game. But, interesting because the Orioles are that team that was lost 110 a year ago, and now they're in playoff hunt, and they show how you could turn it around. And we saw a little fire from Pete Fairbanks the other night, thinking that I forgot who the player was, stepped out on him, and the umpire called time. But it emptied benches, but good to see a little fire in the ballpark. Yeah,
I mean it's always good, especially in a division like the AL East, where the only big rivalry there, at least mainstream rivalry, would be the Yankees and the Red Sox, but Orioles and Rays is going to be, I think, really, really fun for years to come. Because the Orioles have built something that's really sustainable, to their credit, and the Rays are obviously they're a machine, and both of those teams, it's just going to be a lot of fun to watch those matchups. If this is this series is kind of a microcosm of what we have to look forward to, especially in a division where you've got 4 teams that are kind of competing between the Rays, the Orioles, the Yankees, and the Blue Jays. You know, you've got a lot of really good teams there. The races in that division is going to be really fun for the next 4 or 5 years, and it might be the Orioles and the Rays, you know, at the top in the next coming years.
Oh, I don't disagree. Yeah, that's a great point. And think of it as also they're kind of built the same.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're homegrown strategic trades. Yep. You know, just and the Orioles has some really good. Even what D.L. Hall, I think it is.
He got sent down.
Yeah, but I've known about him as a good prospect. The numbers aren't going to look great. But lefty throwing 95, the ball out of his hands. He's a nice-looking young pitcher, and Grayson Rodriguez hasn't been up yet. You know, he had the injury.
Yep.
But when that guy's got ace, like legit ace stuff, and he's in the wings, and yeah. So and I'm happy for Brandon Hyde. I've known Brandon forever. He was a Marlin on the Marlin staff. He was a Marlin minor league manager. He was over there in Chicago, I believe, when they won the World Series. He was on that staff in 2016, and now he's managing them. You know, Brandon's kind of an intense guy. And Freddie Gonzalez, the bench coach, former Marlins manager. So good to see them being rewarded, and it does show. You could kind of flip it pretty quickly. But as for the Rays, because you had noted several times we've been kind of ready to sing their swan song for a while, and they always seem to recover. And as I noted, the Rays are 24th in slugging percentage at .377, and the Marlins have hit more home runs than the Rays this year. The Rays have hit 102 to the Marlins 103, and they're not, obviously they're doing it with pitching, defense,
right? And
they show that they can win games in many, many different ways. But, I don't think it's going to end up with, if they're in the playoffs, it may not be a long stay. But, just kind of your thoughts, how they just find a way. And, that's why statistical data doesn't always define what the Tampa Bay Rays are.
I mean, when it comes to the difference between the Marlins and the Rays and that whole pitching and defense equation, the Marlins have the pitching end of that, but the Rays are the far, far, far superior team defensively, especially in the outfield. And the Rays are going to be interesting specifically because, Wander Franco's not done for the season. He'll probably be back mid-September, just in time, if they're still in the playoff hunt. So that by default makes them, a more interesting team. Who knows what Shane Baz's recovery is going to look like if he's able to come back. So the Rays, they're going to have to throw it together, kind of haphazardly with some of these guys that are coming back from injury. But no team in baseball does that better than the Rays, kind of throwing guys together. One guy goes down, you find another guy to replace him, and you just find another cog in the machine. But when it comes to them having their guys kind of on the mend and coming back, which feels like they've been trying to play catch up all season long, with guys coming back, and oh man, just wait, hold down the fort until these guys come back. It'll be interesting to see how they put that together, if they're still in position to be in the playoffs come September, with Franco and Baz coming back. But I mean, it's just so fun to watch that brand of baseball where you don't know who it's going to be on a given night, but somebody's going to come through and give them the timely, whether it's a productive out or a great defensive play, they just play the game the right way.
And on top of that, for Rasmus, this is a 5-inning pitcher usually.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Bring a perfect game into the 9th inning. What does that do to, as someone who's covered 6 no-hitters in person, and I actually covered Roy Halladay's perfect game, you just see the energy for days that it brings to a team. It's like I don't know what the record is, but I imagine like the day after, I imagine there have been a lot of wins by the team that just threw the no-hitter. That there's just such a vibe of confidence and uplifting, and the next day starter, and your bullpen's rested, and you're playing with so much more, because the buzz around the history of the rare accomplishment, and they do it. They every night's a different hero. Which goes against the theory of overpay one player. You can't really. Right. Tampa Bay, yes, they got 180 something million invested in Franco for the long term, but they don't have like, oh my gosh, we got a $300 million player stuck on a $100 million payroll.
Right.
If he goes down, we're done. Right. It's a new hero every night, and complete example of you win with depth. Depth is a depth sport as well.
I mean, you could flip that on its head. The Rays and the Angels are probably the two best examples of that, because you can have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on the same team,
and Anthony Rendon.
You've got them. Yeah, you've got them going 3 for Trout and Ohtani will be combined for 6 for 8 and 3 home runs, and the Angels lose 7-6. Yep. So it's just one of those things where as much as you want the flashy superstar caliber player, unless you're like the Dodgers and can pay 5 of them,
it's hard.
You've got to build your team through depth.
Yeah, didn't the Angels lose a game where they hit 7 solo homers?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think they lost like 8-7. They hit 7 homers and lost the game. So keep that in mind, everyone who just go get Trey Turner and everything's solved. Let's switch over to the NL East, because we just saw the Braves, and I don't even think the Braves brought their A game. Yeah, I think they just they did enough to sweep the Marlins. They didn't start Fried and Morton and
Strider.
Strider. They just kind of like, okay, and also for the injuries, no Albies, no Darno. Who else am I missing? Duvall. He's out. Zuna's having a horrible year. And I thought I even thought Jansen looked really shaky. He scares me a little bit as he get to the playoffs, and I know he got the saves against the Marlins. But can the Braves catch the Mets? I guess that's where I'm leading to. And I tell you, I'm a little scary. And I guess that Raisel Iglesias is a really good pickup as another closer type. But Jansen, you could run all day on him. He can't hold any runners, because of that long, delivery, and he takes 30 seconds between every pitch, and he never throws over, and it doesn't matter. Anyone can steal on him. I think he could be really interesting, his role when you get to playoff caliber baseball, not holding off the Marlins, per se, in a kind of a meaningless game.
Right. Well, the interesting thing with that, to me, and again, it's going to be, I think it's going to be the same kind of qualifiers that it's always been all season. And for me at this point, it's if Scherzer and if DeGrom are healthy, I don't necessarily see how you catch the Mets, especially when you look at the rest of their rotation, how they've kind of performed as well. Bassett's having a really solid year. Carrasco's been fantastic for them. Walker's been great. Edwin Diaz has been the best closer in the game this year.
Yep.
You've got people campaigning for him to win Cy Young, as ridiculous as that is, but he's been fantastic. So the Mets have a really solid, they've got a really solid formula. They've got a bunch of guys that have really good bat to ball skills. Pete Alonso in the middle of the lineup, kind of anchoring things, is their big power threat. Dan Vogelbach has been fantastic since he's been picked up by the Pirates. And then on top of that, you've got DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett, Carrasco, Walker, all going 6 or 7 innings, and you only need 1 or 2 guys to bridge the gap to Edwin Diaz every night, just about. But some nights you're beating teams 6-0, so you don't even need Diaz. So it's going to be hard to catch the Mets. Go
ahead.
I do like the Braves' infusion of youth. I think calling up Vaughn Grissom was a really great momentum move for them, and he's been fantastic. It was, as aggressive a call up as you can get, in baseball. But he's paid huge dividends for them. But yeah, the Mets, I don't know.
Yeah, I got to put a little plug because I just on the Man on Second baseball website, I wrote something on Vaughn Grissom. Talked to Brian Snitker about him, and I love these stories because Florida kid, real quick, he played at Haggerty High School in Oviedo, high school teammate of Riley Green. While Riley Green was the 5th overall pick, I believe Grissom went in the 11th round. And just even a little more of a story, when Green and Grissom were freshmen at Haggerty, Ryan Mountcastle was a senior on that team. And obviously Mountcastle having a great year and a good time player with the Orioles. So they had 3 big leaguers. Imagine facing Oviedo, facing Haggerty there, and you're giving up some homers and runs. You're like, man, I had a bad day. Some high school kid, 15, 16, 14, 15 years old, facing them. And you're like, oh, don't worry, kid. Turn on the TV in a few years. These guys going to be playing in the big league. So we're, read my story there. I tweeted it out as well on Vaughn Grissom. But before we get out of here, the topic, we all like to beat up Tanner Scott. I defend him, not that I'm saying he's, Billy Wagner, but on this team, I think he's their best option. I bring this up where the Yankees, John Heyman just wrote about the Yankees doing a little bit with Aaron Boone talking about the Yankees going with closer by committee.
Yep.
You hear the Yankees are, they're coming off a 2-7 road trip, strong as they are, and they've kind of run away with it, but there's a little bit of concern now. Aroldis Chapman isn't automatically it. Clay Holmes, 17 to 22 in save chances. They got Lou Trevino. He had 12 or so saves with the A's before he got traded over there. And Scott Effross, he came over from the Cubs. He's capable of high leverage, potentially save situations as well. And I bring this up because these contenders need multiple closers. You don't necessarily want to be relying on closer by committee. The Mets know who their closer is, but Diaz can't go every night if it's a close game.
Right.
So it's the committee thing is a little disturbing to me, or a little not disturbing, but raises some caution for me of concern with the Yankees. I think the Braves kind of effectively addressed it by getting Iglesias to help out Jansen, and the Mets are a little bit. I guess they got Seth Lugo and they could do it, but they might be the most vulnerable. The Mets, if something were to happen to Diaz, that could derail everything for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you look at the back end of the bullpen, or even conversely, if something were to happen to the starters, and you don't have a guy going 7 innings and you only have to worry about one other guy aside from Diaz in the bullpen. So when it comes down to that, the Yankees are in a pretty rough spot as well. Clay Holmes, who was an all-star this year, all of a sudden he's allowed 7 earned runs over his last 4 innings between 5 appearances. So clearly they've kind of, rightfully opened up that closer spot for competition. Especially as 2-7 over their last 9 games, 2-7 over the road trip.
Yeah, the road trip is. I think I wrote it down.
It's gonna be really, really difficult for them because Chapman hasn't been Chapman in a little while now. Yeah. So it's one of those things where they're gonna have to hope that somebody takes that role, runs with it, or they have another reliever that gets hot, because relievers are streaky too. They go on streaks where you'll have a guy go 18 consecutive innings without allowing a run, and it's just you have to kind of ride those waves when you can. And to the point about Tanner Scott, there's a bunch of teams that would love to have a Tanner Scott in their bullpen. There's a lot of teams that are saying, hey, you know what? Give me a lefty that throws 99 with that slider, and we'll make something out of him. So as far as that goes, I wouldn't, obviously I would bring in over the offseason more back end bullpen help, certainly, so that you have maybe 2 or 3 options that can close on any given night, or if a guy goes through a cold streak where he just doesn't have it for a few games, you can pass it off to somebody else. But yeah, I mean, to your point, the Braves have done a good job of that. between Jansen and Iglesias. Now, neither of those two guys have really been shut down this year. Just having that other option to go to is valuable in and of itself.
No question, because that's, you're seeing the effects of 162 impacting teams like the Marlins, who, that's how you go at the trade deadline from a couple of games under to 15. This is where the fun begins. A lot of people, I try to remind everyone, and that's why in May I'm not anointing anyone, because it's about the stretch run. I'll give you the equation. It's like the teams that are the football teams like Missouri. If Alabama's beating them 14-7, 6 minutes into the game, you go, oh well, we're 14-7, 6 minutes in, and then in the fourth quarter it's 52-10. It's like that's how baseball is. If you're just being close, I love the people, 7 under, but only 5 out in the wild card. No, you're not. As long as you're like 5 or more under, you're really not in. Just because there's another wild card doesn't mean you're in it. You're in it when you're over 500 on the back 9 of the golf analogy. I'm all over the place now, but that's why this is crunch time, and this is when you're seeing and needing multiple options, because September is going to really define it.
Yep.
And that's when you're going to see whose bullpen's the hottest. That's why I'm surprised the Marlins didn't trade more of their bullpen pieces, because you can almost find that someone's going to need that depth.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone's going to need that depth, and just, move Floro, move somebody else. That you needed to kind of maximize that, but they weren't the only ones. There are other teams that did the same. It was missed opportunities, but those teams, I guess they're going to ride what they got. Really good. As we get out of here, Erica, good podcast. Obviously, we're going to be covering ground. You'll remind us of this too. That Man on Second. We're branching out. If you guys hear stuff that you want us to address, reach out to us. But it's going to be all things baseball. We're going to kind of pivot more to the playoff teams and the races and what we find interesting, and the Florida angles, and just the good baseball stories as well. Obviously, hit the like and subscribe buttons on 5 Reasons. And Eric, take us out of here, my friend.
Absolutely. So you can find us on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. It does expand our reach, makes us more visible, so you can get more of our content. And you can also follow us on Twitter. That's going to be @ManOnSecond, @ManOn2ND on Twitter. We post clips as well as provide commentary there. So we're going to see you guys next time. We have a lot more. We're going to be talking about a lot more, especially as the stretch run comes out. It's going to be a lot of fun leading into the postseason. So we're looking forward to it, and we hope you are too. We will see you next time.